Hello friends, my name is Martinez and I've never been the best at posting consistently on here, but I was doing pretty well until the very beginning of quarantine, of isolation. In April, I was laid off, and so even though I had all of this time, I did not have a lot of energy to create because I was dealing with all of the stress and uncertainty of like the virus and the pandemic, but also all of the stress and uncertainty of not having a job. Additionally, over the last week, we've been experiencing the protests and uprising in response to the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, as well as more broadly in response to police brutality, racism in the criminal justice system, and systemic racism in the United States. As the Black Lives Matter protests continue, we see that in addition to these protests, people are also organizing online by way of donations and petitions and education and just spreading awareness. My Twitter and Instagram presence is primarily built around the book community. I quit Facebook, which is where most of my family and like high school friends and all of that were. I quit it during the 2016 election. I just loved myself too much. I still have family and friends on Instagram, pretty much none on Twitter, but those platforms are primarily built because of books and booktube and Snark Squad and media in general. Because of that, I've watched how these two things have collided, Black Lives Matter and the book community. I guess I wanted to make this video to talk through some of these things and to process a little bit of what I have been seeing and what I would like to see in the future. The first thing that I personally saw happening was the call out of silence as complicity. People might be wondering what it matters if creators within this community speak up or say something. So I think first we should establish that it only matters if you care. If you care about the pervasive harm caused to Black people, people of color in this country, then the rest of what I'm gonna say applies to you. If you care about the Black people in the communities you've built, specifically if they are communities that you profit from, the rest of this applies. When we are talking about these systems, about systemic racism, we're talking about systems that quietly benefit white people for all of their lives. So this is not a moment of silence, not if you care. If you know me or my content, you know that I truly believe that when we create platforms or when we create content for consumption, we have a responsibility. And if you do not want that responsibility, that's okay, because you don't have to have a platform. You don't have to build a community. When you do have one, what you promote, what you create, the stances that you take, what you say, and who you include and exclude from your communities because of what you say all matter. And so people started to get called out for staying silent or for posting as normal, for having the privilege and luxury to ignore an entire uprising and just posting as normal. And so that led to conversations about how to be an ally, how to amplify voices of Black organizers and Black educators and Black creators. And I guess I just wanted to talk through a few things here as well. One was the reaction or the sort of idea that the bookish spaces that we create are apolitical. Why can't we just leave the politics aside and talk about books and enjoy books? Putting aside that you see the murdering of Black people as a political stance and not a human rights violation, oh my God, do I have news for you about books. All books are political. We have bought into this idea that there is such a thing as any media that is unbiased or apolitical, as if you can ever truly divorce the work from the person who created it with all of their complex worldviews, beliefs, and politics. As if the mediums we use are apolitical, as if YouTube and Twitter are apolitical, as if the publishing industry is apolitical, as if the very idea of who gets to tell stories is not political. When you are asking to leave politics out of books, what you are actually saying is that you want to enjoy your books and your space without the inconvenience of having to think about racism. And that is a luxury that Black people in this country and Black people in booktube in this community do not have. Secondly, as people do speak out, there have been stumbles and there have been call outs. And I don't even want to say or speak for like the entire Black community, but I will say that coming from me, there has been a lot of frustration. I am very frustrated. I'm frustrated because white people and non-Black people of color are absolutely right to amplify Black voices at this time. You are incredibly correct. However, there is something missing if all you do is retweet and post to your story. Again, you don't have to do anything, but if you do care, it isn't enough to just wake up one day and go, I do care about racism in a larger context, but also in these smaller communities where I participate, like in booktube, and you get to start start on a blank page. Imagine what it's like to me to have been in this community for all of these years, suffering the microaggressions and being the token black girl on panels, and hearing the coded language that people use when they talk about me, not only to my face but behind my back. Being blocked, being muted, and being ignored primarily for things like speaking up about the mis- and underrepresentation of people of color in media, and then seeing those same people wake up the next day and start tweeting about how racism sucks. Like, okay, thank you, but also, are we going to hear from you about this? To be clear, I don't want to hear your commentary on racism. I want to know how you personally are going to do better. I want to know the concrete steps and actions that you're going to take to read more diversely, like we've been asking you to do for years. I want to hear how you're going to promote and protect the Black creators in this community. I want to know how you're going to react the next time people of color call out a book for being racist. I want to hear how you're going to do your part to get us on equal footing with publishers and with sponsors. And if you don't have the answers to these questions, like, thank you for your retweet, but it isn't enough. To put it even more plainly, yes, I'm frustrated because the conversations I was having 2 weeks ago were all about how the work that Stephenie Meyer creates is disgustingly racist and harmful, and people were saying to my face that they weren't going to stop reading it, promoting it, or enjoying it. In fact, they were admitting that that work that is disgustingly racist and harmful was foundational and formative for them. And then you have the audacity to wake up a few days ago and tweet that racism sucks? Make it make sense. Instead of making it make sense, I've seen too many people get into their feelings about how uncomfortable this is. Yes, it should be. It is uncomfortable. Do you think any of this work is comfortable? Do you buy into the idea that speaking up about representation in books or the inequalities in booktube has ever been comfortable? And yet, Black women have been doing that work in this community for years. I'm scared to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes, especially if you haven't engaged with, thought about, or read about racism or American history since you left a watered-down history class in high school. I am also scared to make mistakes. I make videos and I send them to friends for review multiple times because I am terrified of being vilified for explaining and talking about my own experiences. If you speak up and you make a mistake, apologize with specificity. Apologize for the thing that you did and tell us the steps that you are taking to learn from it, make it better, and move on. And then learn from it and move on. Listen, this isn't just a tenuous connection between George Floyd and booktube. And I know that it would be ignorant of me to think that everybody has to enjoy the books that I enjoy, or everybody has to read books the way that I read books. It would also be unfair of you to think that I'm going to catch every problem in every book that I read. It's impossible for any of us to think that there are such things as perfect books, or that we will not continue to enjoy imperfect books. I think we need to be a little more aware, however, of how media is at the front line of tools that are used to reinvent and continue to support racism in this country. It really freaking matters the books that you promote and talk about and essentially sell to your viewers. Compared to YouTube at large, I truly believe that booktube is one of the better communities. I've seen firsthand how loving and accepting this community can be, but that doesn't erase the fact that we can also be better. I fought against the tide of racism in this community, and that includes lack of visibility and lack of support. I hope you accept this as your challenge to do better. And it shouldn't take this. It shouldn't take violence against Black bodies for people to realize that there is a problem. And it shouldn't take Black creators coming onto this platform now and bleeding just a little bit more for you to truly understand. But here we are, and all I can ask you to do is to make those concrete decisions and plan those steps to continue to do better long term. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys hopefully soon.